Good afternoon, everyone. I am faceless again this month with some connection issues, but thank you for joining us today for our monthly Lunch and Learn. Every month we try to go over something that we think would be helpful for our community to learn about victims' rights or things that are associated with victims' rights or resources in Maryland, usually. And today we're going to go over things with the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. We have done this Lunch and Learn in the past, but a lot of things have changed. And so we felt it was important to kind of get back on here and share that information with everyone at home. Joining us today is our MCVRC attorney, Glenna Barner, advocate Lucretia Washington, and from CICB directly is Jessica Cohen. We'll do a quick round robin on what you guys do for each organization, and then we'll hop right into the questions. Glenna?
Okay. I help clients with their CICB claims, their Criminal Injuries Compensation Board claims, and I help to make sure that they supply all the information that's needed, and that if they get denials, that we work with them to try to get their claims approved.
Thanks, Glenna. Lucretia?
So I assist victims with, of course, the process of filing for criminal injuries, walk them through the process. Also ensure that piggybacking from Attorney Barner, that all documentations are in. If there are correspondence that are sent, we all receive to ensure that the victim or survivor always understands the process and is supported through that process as well.
Thanks, Lucretia. And Jessica?
So as the victim services advocate, I handle a lot of our walk-ins. So if people are coming directly with their application, I'll meet with them, assist them with their applications. If they have any questions, I handle a lot of our emergency applications, which a lot of times we have our emergency funeral claims. I also take on a lot of my own claims. If people have questions, I usually will handle a lot of the phone calls with questions. I source through a lot of the applications. I do trainings with a lot of victim service organizations. And if examiners need assistance with getting police reports, I work with that as well.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you so much for joining us. I think that, the CICB claims, they always start at Jessica's office. And so it's so good to have you here so you can just start us off. So I guess the basic question would be like, what is CICB and who is eligible for that and how do they start?
So CICB, so we're the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, and we assist victims of crime and their family members with compensation, reimbursement. I like to say that it's not always, I know it's Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, but a lot of times it is directly reimbursement because we are the payer of last resort. So a lot of times we are reimbursing people. So, and I will say, who's eligible. So a person who suffers physical or psychological injury or death as a result of a crime or delinquent act, or also could be trying to prevent a crime or apprehend an offender or help law enforcement. And it's not necessarily, a victim could be eligible. Because if a victim, is unfortunately deceased, it could be their family member or someone that is assisting with that funeral expense as well, or presume that responsibility.
So that's interesting. Like I didn't know that if someone is helping aid someone who could be victimized, then they could also be covered because of the injuries. Nice. So they come to your office, right, to CICB to file a claim?
Yes. And there's a few different ways that you can file a claim. Now we have, we do have our application, our paper application, where you can fill that out. There's like a PDF form where you could fill it out, or you could print it out and then come to our office and complete it. And then now we also do have an online portal that's pretty new and user friendly that can be completed as well.
Okay. And what do people need to start the process? Like, do they need like a police report number, or how does that go?
So now, July 1st, 2025, so last year, we don't require that you need a police report. So you don't have to report to the police. I will say that even though now you don't have to report to the police, if you do have a police report, if you did report to the police and you do have a police report number, you do need to put that on your application. I mean, if you don't have it at the time, it's okay, but we would like that because we do request the police report. And that's a big part of the documentation because we need to know that a crime happened. So having that police report is, detailing that, a crime was committed. It's giving us the information. So yes, it's not a requirement to apply, but it's that sufficient documentation that, yes, we need to show that, a crime was committed. But like I said, it's not required. So, if you didn't report to the police, that's okay. But there is other documentation that, we're going to need.
Okay. Perfect.
I have a question about the police report. Well, if you don't have a police report, what else can you use in place of a police report?
So let's say, like, for instance, you were assaulted and, you didn't report to the police. This could be like a domestic violence incident. You were afraid, you didn't report to the police, but, you went to the hospital and your medical records, can show that, it's kind of on your, medical discharge summary or that, medical notes that showing that those injuries happened, bruising to the face. So that could be documentation that could show that, okay, this happened, or a third party, like a domestic violence agency, a letter from them, stating that, you came to them, just some words or kind of what happened, that you were talking to them about it, protective orders, peace orders, letters from a physician, I'd say forensics exams, but a lot of times, depending what it is, that could be reported to the police.
Thank you.
So Jessica, can you tell me, please, what the timeline is that the victim has to report and file for criminal injuries?
So the statute changed July 1st, 2025. It used to be 3 years. Now it's 4 years to apply from the date of the crime. There is some difference. So if like child abuse can anytime you can apply. And then did I write it down? There's other instances where if they're delayed by like DNA evidence, like a safe kit, you have 4 years to apply from the time that you were informed of the information. But I will say, like, in instances like that, if it was like sexual assault and you did report to the police, you did have that time back then to apply. So if you were in this instant, I guess, with like the being alerted that, the DNA evidence, it would have to be like that trauma at that time, like why you were applying, because it's bringing back things that had happened. So it's, if you're applying for like counseling, it's like counseling, that you're applying for like now, not, if something happened, I guess, maybe 20 years ago, not applying for counseling expenses from maybe 20 years ago, because there was a time that you could have applied back then. But we do also, I will say, have like a good cause where exception, where, in cases of, let's say, you didn't apply you can apply, and then there's that good cause exception why you didn't apply. So we would need a letter into reasons why you didn't apply.
So when in instances of course, we see constantly you have survivors that or secondary victims that are applying for maybe a victim who is hospitalized or in a rehabilitation facility and can't physically at this point go through the process themselves, and they have a point of contact applying on for them. What is needed from that survivor or secondary victim to apply? Is it a power attorney needed? What is it that they need to do?
Yes, so you would need a power of attorney because anyone who is 18 and older who is a victim of a crime would need to apply themselves as the claimant and the victim. But in instances where, they're unable to apply because there's like, they would need a power of attorney or they have a guardian, then that other person can apply for them, but we would need the documentation. And then I always say, like, they do have 4 years to apply as well. So maybe, they're in the hospital at this time. They still do have 4 years to apply.
So to piggyback off what you said, and speaking, of course, for Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center and our part in that, you can render the services of myself, other victims advocate in our area, depending on what your region area is, as well as Attorney Barner to assist with that. It's just, of course, in that application process. In section 6 of the application, it asks you, do you have a victim representative? And that's where we can come in and make that process a little bit easier, where we're now able to advocate and act on your behalf. But I know that is something that a lot of times we're garnered questions with how does that happen? So I just wanted to put that information out there, that there are exceptions to that when you're working with organizations such as ourselves.
So just to backtrack a little bit, I know that that the compensation usually has to do with what money was spent on, let's say, funeral expenses or what have you. So the applicant can be various people, right? Like it could be maybe mom paid for something. Let's say there was like a death, like a homicide, and mom paid for something, but auntie helped pay for the funeral. Like there could be multiple people that are applying for compensation, correct?
Yes. And I will say, like, a lot of times with funeral reimbursement, a lot of times the person that signed the contract is not the one that paid for it.
Right.
Because they're just trying to, kind of figure out the arrangements up front. And then, they're just trying to kind of gather, how am I going to pay for this? And then other people have stepped in. And
Sure.
Unfortunately, they're the ones that end up applying. And then once we get the receipts, we kind of say, unfortunately, you're not the one that paid for this. We follow the receipt. We don't follow the contract. So
Right.
it's okay if the contract has a different person that signed it than the receipt, because we're looking at the receipt. So it's who's on the receipt, who paid for it. And if
Right.
multiple people had paid for it, it's going to have to be multiple applications.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
So
then we have to.
let's hop into that let me finish up this real quick, and then I want to hop into that because I feel like that is very confusing. And so I definitely want to break that down, but I just wanted to go back up to the original question and just be like, so people are applying, how long does the process take to get approved? Like, does this time out, like someone puts in their application, they're like, I paid for these things, here it is. When should they expect that application to be completed? Or is there a timeline? Is there a deadline? Like, what should people do?
Honestly, with the timeline, it's really can't really give you an answer
Okay.
because so once you send an application, we input the application into the system, and then you will receive an introduction letter with your examiner, and then you might receive some other documentation depending what you're applying for.
Right.
And then once you get your examiner, once the examiner kind of looks at, depending if you give other documents with your application, some people do, some people don't. It depends if they're working with an advocate that knows, what documents you may need, or if they just know what to provide. It really all depends. Some people provide just the application, some people provide other stuff.
Sure.
So
Sure. So fastest, what's the fastest you've ever seen like a CICB go through?
It's really kind of hard to say. We have
an emergency I've done in a day.
Okay, so emergency in a day, which we're about to talk about. And then there's going to be some back and forth with like documentation, like what is needed, receipts and stuff like that.
I mean, so so it really depends. Do we have the documents? Do we not? And some claims are easier than others. Funerals are very straightforward. Medical.
Oh, I thought that one was the hard one.
No, medical can be a lot. Counseling can be a lot. So there's some that are just very
more complex.
So it really just depends like what it is. So I will say, so once the examiner looks at what you may or may not have, then they provide you a missing information letter. And in that missing information letter, it's what documents they need. So you have about like a month to provide those documents. Then they'll look them over. If you provide them, if you don't provide them, they'll send you another one with the documents that you need. If you have an advocate, they'll send the advocate them as well. And then we'll also request the police report if you do have that information as well. And then depending if whatever you send, whatever you don't send, and we have what we need. And if you communicate with us kind of what's going on, then if we believe that we have everything, then it goes to review. And that's when our deputy director will review it. If there's no questions on the documentation that we have, then if it's an award, a denial, or a show cause, the decision, depending what it is, gets drafted, and then it gets reviewed again by our director, and then the decision will go to interim decision, depending what it is.
Okay.
And then in that time frame, you have 30 days, depending what it is. If it's an award, or a denial, you can request a reconsideration hearing.
Okay.
If it's in a show cause, you have 30 days to provide the documents that are listed on that show cause for the examiner to review them if they're enough to kind of not send it to that final show cause.
So there's various time levels based on how complicated the case may be and some of the expenses that have occurred. Should people file separate claims for different, like one is for funeral or one is for?
No, it's all under the same application.
So it's one big, huge application.
Yes.
Okay.
And I can say, as far as time-wise, like she said, there's really no certain time, but I've noticed in the last 6 to 9 months that a lot of the claims are being processed faster. But we do have some claims that are complicated that have lasted for years. CICB may be requesting information and we're not able to provide them that information, or there's a lot of delays in getting information to them. So some of the cases do drag on for quite a while.
Sure. And then when does MCVRC usually find people come to us? Because I know we're not usually involved at the very beginning, right?
That depends on the victim or the survivor. Sometimes we are. Sometimes we get that call, and you know, their loved one was just murdered on yesterday, and they are calling because they are seeking assistance with final arrangements. So we become involved from day one. Sometimes we get the call when they've already gone through the process of starting the process with criminal injuries, and they are now trying to navigate whether, as Ms. Cohen said, they have a reconsideration hearing. And I'll go back and let Ms. Cohen explain what those things are. So then now they're referred to us because now attorney, Barner becomes involved because, of course, now they need representation for those hearings. So it really depends on the victims, whether it comes in as a referral or they physically call in to Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center to seek assistance. It really depends on where they are. But yeah, sometimes we start from day one, and sometimes we start at where they're actually in their appeal process.
Okay, great. I mean, I think it's great, like if they find out about us so that we can kind of help them. I could definitely see, I just imagine my mother trying to navigate like electronics. Like, she was that person that would be like, can you internet this for me? Like, finding an app and finding a bill online was just not something that was in her wheelhouse. So I could imagine, needing a little bit of hand holding on things, especially when there's a lot of emotions involved in the victimization process. So thanks for sharing all that information. Was there anything that you guys wanted to add to that question before we moved into the whole emergency funds and the next question? No?
I would like for Ms. Cohen to elaborate. She explained the various phases of once your application is filed and the claim process starts. She went through a few different scenarios of how long it could take due to certain things. So I just want her to elaborate a little bit about what that is and what that looks like.
Like the decisions?
Correct. So typically when an application is filed, the application is submitted. The victim will receive a letter, an introductory letter stating, hey, we received your application. You're told who your point of contact at that point is. And then, of course, the next process, if there is more information needed, as you said, typically within 30 days, you'll receive a missing information letter. That missing information letter usually tells you what is needed, whether it is if you're seeking a reimbursement for counseling services, whatever documentation is needed from your therapist or psychiatrist. If you are seeking reimbursement for medical or continuing care, because sometimes the victims will continue to have medical services such as rehabilitation, any documentation needed from that, as well as any documents needed for reimbursement for out of pocket for funeral services or lost wages, anything that is needed. And then, of course, it could be a process where all of that is submitted, but also they're saying, well, you know what, we need a little bit more information. So that's where it comes in, as you said, that reconsideration hearing. So I just wanted you to elaborate on what that was, because, of course, not everyone is familiar with that process such as we are.
So once we receive all the documents after, we sent the missing information letter, we receive all the documents for your requested expenses, it gets sent for review. We decide before it gets sent for review, we're deciding, are we going to award it, deny it, or is it going to be show cause? Award, depending what you're requesting, funeral, counseling, the amount of money. Is it a reimbursement? Are we reimbursing you? Counseling, reimbursing you out of, or is it a medical expense? Do you have an outstanding medical bill? So are we going to be paying the provider? So that would go directly to the provider. So if it's an award, I also will say with awards sometime, let's say that you are We're going to reimburse you for funeral expenses, but we can also deny you for bereavement because you're not an eligible party. You're the brother of the decedent. We don't pay, unfortunately. Siblings are not eligible. So we can deny you on one, but we can award you on the other. It will just be in the decision. So then it will go to review. The deputy director will review it. Then it goes the award. The decision is drafted. Either it's award or it's denied completely. We're denying it. Or it's show cause. And show cause means that you just didn't provide us the documentation that we were requesting. And then our one director will review the decision that was written up just to go make sure that everything is, okay, and complete. And then that interim decision will be sent out. And with you have 30 days from the interim decision and that final to request a reconsideration hearing. And that means that award or that denial, you're saying, I'm not okay with this decision. I want to request a reconsideration hearing. So you have to write a written letter stating that, I'm requesting a reconsideration hearing. I'm not happy. And then you have to provide additional documentation to prove why, why kind of we're wrong and, what supports like what you're reconsidering. And then I will say with that show cause, you didn't provide the documentation to us, but you can provide it with that 30 days before it would go to final.
And when people get the missing information letters or the interim decisions or whatever, people can get, very upset because they're very emotional during this time in their life, and you're making them relive something that, they've been through. So our staff is very good at working with people and getting them back on track.
Thank you, ladies. So I've got a couple questions in the comments. One is from Rick Wiggs. Is this information available in hospitals and shelters about CICP? Do you guys know?
I know it's available in hospitals.
Okay, so they probably have to talk to like the like their caseworker in the hospital.
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
I was gonna say we definitely get referrals from hospitals, and I've definitely done trainings to hospitals, so
it's great.
It's available.
So yes, a lot of times
shelters.
That information, if they are a victim of crime, whether it's coming from the victim witness from the police, the state's attorney's office, or the hospitals. A lot of times what will happen is, as we stated before, sometimes they will go ahead and help them and assist them with filing the application at that time. So a lot of times that information is available. But again, sometimes it does slip through the cracks, and we do get those phone calls that 2 years later they say, well, I was never told about this. And hopefully then they haven't passed that 4-year timeline where they can still file.
Yeah. There's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of things going on at that time inside their heads. So, and then the other question that we had, I guess it's not a question, but I guess I got a question. It's 3 years to wait once you claim a file for CICB to ensure no one else files a claim. Do you guys check to see if there's like double claimants on things, on expenses?
Well, as Ms. Cohen said, there can be multiple claimants on a victim. If the father paid for the funeral and the mother paid for the burial plot, or the flowers, or the repast, or the clothes so there are a lot of times where there can be multiple people that can file on one claim. So no, that is not true. It is not held up for 3 years to make sure that someone else doesn't file, because there can be multiple claimants.
Okay. All right. Okay. You ready? Okay. I know it's so weird that you guys can't see me because you can't see like what my face is doing here. All right. So emergency funeral funds. That's new, right? No? Oh, clearly I don't do this. Clearly, listen, you guys are the pros. I'm just a person trying to share information. So emergency funeral funds. Can you tell us how do we go about this? And that's the one, Jessica, that you said moves, I mean, because it's emergency, so they're moving pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess we're gonna hop into the other part, which is the next question, which has to do with like the separate campaigns and stuff. So emergency funeral funds are available to people, and sometimes it's not, if it's a funeral, it's not mom or dad, it could be, another person. Can we expand?
Yeah, I will say so. For emergency funeral funds, a lot of times it's like next of kin, mom, dad, sibling, typically do come in for the emergency funeral funds. So it's up to $10,000. And I will say with the emergency funeral funds, we do still, it kind of still follows the same process. But there needs to be an undue hardship. So why are you unable to pay for the funeral funds up front, and will suffer an undue hardship, if you do? So, if I were to use my money that I'm paying for, my mortgage, my rent, my necessities, if I, use my money for my bills, I won't to pay for the funeral. So that type of thing. So we ask for like a statement and then supporting documentation. So that could be, pay stubs, bills, if you're on any type of, government assistance, those verification letters, if there's any like turnoff notices. So just any type of supporting documentation to support your undue hardship. We still ask for, a death certificate. And I will say with emergency, we kind of will ask for the working death certificate. So it doesn't need the vital records death certificate. But we'll still ask for, still need the contract. We still need
with the funeral home, right? The contract with the funeral home.
Yes. And it includes burial as well. So
and the cemetery.
Let's say that, there's two vendors. Max is always going to be $10,000. So if there's two vendors and it's over $10,000, we have to prorate it. So, and with that, we request the police report, and we also can use like articles, press releases. So it's a likelihood that it's going to be paid with the emergency funeral fund, but we still need to get information and documentation that they're a victim, eligible for, compensation, that, they were a victim of a crime. And then since we are still payer of last resort, we're going to ask about GoFundMe's. If there is a GoFundMe, we're going to, do the deduction of it. And then also life insurance policies. If there was a life insurance policy, that's not really an emergency because there is a life insurance policy that you have. And we forgive, and this is just for all funerals in general. We do forgive the first $25,000 of a life insurance policy. And then also with GoFundMe's as well. If there was a GoFundMe, we have to deduct that from the $10,000, like the maximum. And I will say, we do look to see if there were GoFundMe's, if there was for, funeral memorials. I understand sometimes people do GoFundMe, directly for if there were children of the decedent. If that might be like a different type of, that's different. That's not necessarily for the funeral memorial, cost. So there's just things to look at.
So there's a line between the GoFundMe, like what the purpose of the GoFundMe is. If the GoFundMe is the purpose is funeral services, then
Yeah,
that
direct.
right. And it would be adjusted based on the amount raised through the GoFundMe versus if it was for, college or just living expenses for the family because they were a breadwinner or what have you, then there's a big difference in that. And that's
Yeah, I
taken into
think, we would
consideration.
just look at, specifically what is it for? I know there's been certain instances where, specifically for the children for something else. It had nothing to do with the funeral memorial.
Yeah, the technology that allows us to do all things. Okay, and then you mentioned that it was 10. I'm just going over these questions, making sure that we're hitting all of them. Okay, was there anything that you guys wanted to add on that before we hop into?
I wanted to bring up that there are other emergency funds that you can get. For example, relocation. Is that correct, Jessica?
Yes, I know that was one of our other questions. Yeah.
Oh,
Are there any besides emergency and relocation, which we're about to hop into?
So I think we should talk about the different things that can be claimed. We talked about funeral expenses, but if Jessica will elaborate on what is reimbursable.
For funeral?
The various things, counseling services, funeral burial, crime scene cleanup, bereavement leave. If you can just elaborate on what a victim or survivor could file for.
Okay. I have the amounts too. I know that was our next question. So the cap, I will say, is always going to be $45,000. No matter what the claim is, because I know if people, apply for a few different things. So just before I go off my numbers, the claim is always going to be $45,000. The cap's always going to be $45,000. So medical is $45,000, and then counseling is $45,000. So just kind of an example, you can't get 90,000 because they're both 45,000. Crime scene cleanup is 2,000. And then emergency relocation, 10,000. And then the crime scene cleanup also falls under emergency. And then emergency claims are $10,000 total, which the crime scene cleanup, emergency relocation, and funeral fall under that. And so the emergency claims being $10,000, let's say like you need crime scene cleanup for 2,000, but you also need funeral for a certain amount. You can't do like the $12,000, even though, the emergency claim is $10,000. So let's say if like funeral, you only needed $8,000 for, in the crime scene cleanup, you need $2,000 for, there's your $10,000. Bereavement leave is up to 2 weeks of pay or no more than $2,000. Disability and loss of earnings are both $25,000. And then we also have caring for a minor child who was a victim of a crime, a parent or guardian can get up to 30 days of pay. Loss of support is $25,000, and that's only when a victim is deceased or an offender in the crime is incarcerated and provided principal support to the victim or minor child. And then also, and then with the funerals, like I said before, they'll be prorated if multiple people applied. And then, like I said, with the cap being $45,000, if multiple people applied for something, there's only like one pot of money. So the same victim crime, that's that one pot anyway. And then we are payer of last resort. So if you're applying for bereavement leave, but you got time off from work, we can't necessarily double compensate you. Also with loss of earnings, if you're applying, but you use time off from work, vacation, some disability, depending what it is, it can't necessarily double compensate you. So that's kind of why we ask for, documentation just to show and kind of get understanding of what you were paid for and, what you weren't paid for.
So can you tell me a little bit about transportation and childcare? A lot of times, we've had cases where we've seen where the victim's loved one or those that are as you said, fall under that, whether it's the mom, the dad, or the children, are not in state, and they've had to fly to come and handle funeral arrangements or whatever is needed for the victim. Is that compensatable?
No.
Okay.
The only child care and transportation that is covered is for crimes that happened July 1st, 2025 on, can be covered under medical or counseling if you need transportation or childcare for you to go to your medical or counseling appointments. And it's only for if, you use like taxi, Lyft, Uber, where you can show that you went from point A to point B to go to your medical appointment or your counseling appointment. Or I had to go to these appointments and someone had to watch my child, and I paid them for childcare. We can't reimburse someone for gas money because we don't know where you went after, so type of thing. So that's what they've added to the law for childcare and transportation. But unfortunately, we don't reimburse for transportation or accommodations for having to come here because of the loss of a loved one.
So complicated. All right, so we've got a question from Troy. If you have a job that pays $60,000 per year and die as a direct result, does the survivor get loss of earnings up to the maximum based on annual salary? Or are we still capped at, what did you say earlier? It was like everything was 45. That's just what I remember you saying.
$25,000. And if it's die at work, it would be under workman's compensation. So you'd have to file a claim with workman's compensation. And we also look at, with any type of loss of earnings, we, request like W-2, 1099, pay stubs. You have to be paying into taxes with any type of work jobs. So that's how we look at it as well. We are unfortunately unable to pay any type of, or compensate for any type of jobs that pay under the table and are cash.
Right. Okay. Relocation coverage. I feel like I have a lot of questions about that. Is it, what types of crimes would be covered under relocation? Is it all crimes, or are there just specific ones?
So with relocation, we're still payer of last resort. So it would be a crime occurred in the claimant's home. They reside with the alleged offender. So it could be like cases of domestic violence, sexual assault, or the claimant can demonstrate as a direct result of the crime, there is a reasonable fear for their continued health and safety if they do not relocate immediately. And for this one, I would say payment is made directly to the vendor. So we would be able to assist with moving truck. I will say that we don't work off, we work off of checks. And we've been working off of checks. We don't process any of the money. It does not come from our office. So, and we would only be able to do like one of these. So, security deposits. Unfortunately, we don't pay rent. Moving truck, moving boxes. plane tickets, but it's just kind of trying to understand how are we going to pay that with a check. And so with that, I will say as pair of last resort, it's have you reached out to any other organization first? So have you reached out to the state's attorney's office? I do know that state's attorney's offices have funds, depending what jurisdiction you're in. If you need to relocate, a crime had happened, and if the police were called, and there's a court case that's going on, you can reach out to the state's attorney's office if you're working with a victim advocate to see if they can help assist with relocation. I know Baltimore City state's attorney's office does a great job with this. Other jurisdictions, I know that funds might be an issue, or if they have the capacity to work with that, but we would need, to at least reach out to them to see if they're able to assist. And then working with, if you can reach out to, other like nonprofits, just to kind of, because we're pair of last resort. So have you reached out to them first, or are you just directly coming to us first? And there also needs to be an undue hardship. Like I said, with the funeral ones, like if like, are you able to pay for a security deposit? And if not, why aren't you able to pay for it? So just telling us what that undue hardship is. And then also we need to, that supporting documentation. And then, we need documentation that, a crime has occurred and, what's going on. Has the police been called? Have you reached out to them?
Yeah. So I see Lucretia nodding her head. I know she's probably done so many of these, and she's in Baltimore. So, Lucretia, I guess for those at home that are watching and then maybe need or are trying to relocate, get out of a situation, can you you're still too long, Jessica. You're still too long. You weren't moving enough around. Do you want to elaborate a little bit just for those that are watching? Like, I know that they'll call in to us oftentimes with their cases, and then our advocates are amazing. They kind of know the way that we're broken up at MCBRC. They're broken up by counties and Baltimore City, of course. And so each advocate kind of knows the resources that are available to their clients. Do you want to share a little bit about how people can get involved with us so that we can help guide them, and what some of those other resources are if they need help relocating?
Definitely. And as Jessica said, with Baltimore City, I'm the advocate for Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Kent, Cecil, and Hartford. So they are able to go to either our website, and you're able on the website to do an online intake. If you are not computer savvy, you can literally call our office, call the number listed on our website. And also, if I can, Sandra, have someone put that information in the chat. Give us a call, an advocate in whatever jurisdiction that the crime occurred. It's not based off of what city you live in. If you live in Baltimore City and the crime happened in PG County, you will be connected with a PG advocate, because we base our intake off of where the crime happened. The victim or survivor will do an intake. From there, we will assess what the need is. Is it an ongoing legal case where you would need legal counseling, as well as advocacy? Every victim looks different. Some are only interested in criminal injuries. Some have ongoing criminal cases and need an advocate such as myself to basically maneuver them through the legal process. Some victims need myself as well as Attorney Barner. So it's very, very, very individualized. Once we complete the intake, from there, we will move forward in assisting the victim. We do cover the whole state of Maryland. There are certain instances where we are able to take victims out of certain areas due to us having an array of attorneys. I will leave that up to Attorney Barnard to go a little bit deeper into the legal services. But as Ms. Cohen said, when it comes to relocation, a lot of times your first line of defense would be whether it's the state's attorney's office or the police, because they tend to have a larger amount of resources when it comes to being able to handle relocation, when it comes to that funding, and it's not as restricted as CICB.
I wanted to bring up something about loss of earnings, because I find this to be an area that people have a lot of concern about. If somebody, say, has been assaulted and they're not able to work for 2 months, they have to submit whatever paperwork that the CICB needs to see how much they actually make. But once a decision is made to pay you, you only get 2/3 of whatever your actual loss of income. Is that correct, Jessica?
Yes.
And that's, for a lot of people,
Because we're
that's,
deducting
very
the
upsetting. But that's they follow under the workers' comp rules. And so that's why you get 2/3 of whatever it is.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, well, we've got about 7 minutes left. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add before we hop off?
I wanted to add that we have a full staff of advocates, paralegals, and then attorneys to help you with your CICB case. So if you decide that you say you do not want to work with us, you still can contact us to ask questions, and the advocates and paralegals will assist you in the matter. So don't feel bad if you don't want to obligate yourself to coming with, working with us. We will give you information.
Thanks, Glenna. Jessica?
I would always say that, if you have any questions, you can always contact us directly. We do have our walk-in hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And like I said earlier, there's a few ways to submit an application. You can mail it. You can come in during our walk-in hours. We have an email where you can submit it to, and we also have a new portal as well. That's very user-friendly. It's very easy to fill it out and submit the application.
And where's your office located, Jessica?
Oh, yes. It's at Reisterstown Road Plaza. So we're 6776 Reisterstown Road. So we're right. We're in Baltimore City, but it's between Baltimore City and Baltimore County.
And that's Randallstown. Is that Reisterstown? Is the city?
It's Baltimore.
It is Baltimore? Okay.
It's Baltimore. It's off of Reisterstown Road.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're at Reisterstown Road Plaza.
Hey, Jessica, I'm just curious, when you have walk-ins, do you find that you're able to get more information through the walk-ins than people who just send in their applications?
I'll be honest, a lot of the walk-ins I get are my emergency claims.
Okay.
But I will say a lot of the walk-ins that I do get, I'm able to, sit down with them. And, people do come and I kind of talk to them, and they might not be eligible for us. So it's nice to kind of talk to them and say, you're not eligible, but you might not be eligible for this, but you could be eligible for that. So I think it's just kind of having a conversation about, you're not eligible for this, you could be eligible for that. So it kind of helps people understand it a little better. into what we can assist them with, because I think people kind of get a wrong understanding about us, because we're criminal injuries compensation board. I'm gonna get money. So it's not necessarily that, and a lot of it's reimbursement. So I will say sitting down with people is helpful. And then also when people do apply, you are able to come in and submit the documents to us. We do also, yes, walk-ins are Tuesday and Thursday, but the office, at least downstairs, is open Monday through Friday, and we do have like a mailbox down there where you can drop in items as well. And I can put what our portal information is in the chat.
Nice. And yeah, I definitely think that, in person, nowadays, everything's an email or a robocall or a press 1 for this, and just having some FaceTime and really getting someone to explain something, especially when you have so many emotions going on about the situation as a whole, really kind of makes people feel a little bit more whole. So, Lucretia, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, just to piggyback, also with us, that is an option to come either in our Baltimore City office, which is on 1 North Charles Street, and we're in Suite 1310. We do take walk-ins, but it is by appointment. We don't have like an open office. Also, you are able to do the same with our Upper Marlboro office. Can you guys put that address in the chat? Because I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
The same thing. Definitely, if it's more convenient for you to walk in and actually sit down and speak with someone, we're definitely available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. To take those walk-ins.
Hold on, you had me type in, so I gotta, give me a second to finish that. Thank you so much. I think that, is a complicated situation. People are victimized and they've got a lot of feelings going on. There's a lot of money going out. Just getting that guidance, for those of you at home that are not familiar with CICB, you can absolutely apply on your own, or you can come through us either way, or you can apply on your own and then come to us, or you can, however you want to do it. I think that there's a lot going on. And like Glenna said earlier, our advocates at our different locations can help guide you so that, you're not as frustrated, I think, hearing that you're not eligible for something, because maybe we can kind of like shift things around for you and find you some other resources based on our network of nonprofits and other organizations that are working with us and working with victims all over. If you guys need us, you know where to find us. Every month, like I said, we do these. We did one, I think 2 years ago we did CICB, but some of the things have changed. So you can definitely go back into our YouTube channel and find that older one. And then hand in hand with this CICB, next month, we're going to be doing a lunch and learn on restitution, completely separate, but we are talking about money. So, if restitution is something that you have an open ear for, or you would like to learn more information about, please tune in next month as well. It's always on the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and we run from 12 to 1. And it is now 1 o'clock. So let me say thank you to you ladies for joining us. Jessica, sorry for the grilling of you. You're like in the spotlight. Great job. I told Lucretia that she should have been like the host of this one. But we definitely appreciate you. I mean, I think breaking down some of this information for people at home that really need it is so vital, so that they can understand things without having to, have all the emotions that just come flooding through with the situation. So thank you so much for joining us. And Glenna and Lucretia, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Same here.
Of course.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, Jessica.
Of course.